Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the greatest battles do not come from strangers, enemies, or people far away. Sometimes the deepest spiritual attacks come through people sitting at your dinner table, people smiling in your face, people who claim to love you while quietly draining your peace, weakening your faith, and pulling you away from the purpose God placed inside you. Not every person around you is sent to help you grow. Some people are assignments against your destiny. Some spirits operate through jealousy, manipulation, confusion, bitterness, and constant negativity. And if you are not spiritually awake, you will keep calling dangerous influences normal behavior, while your soul slowly suffers in silence. One of the clearest signs of destructive spiritual influence is when someone constantly pulls you away from God instead of closer to Him. Pay attention to what happens to your spirit after you spend time with certain people. Do you feel encouraged, strengthened, peaceful, and hopeful? Or do you feel exhausted, guilty, anxious, angry, and spiritually cold? Darkness often hides behind familiar faces. There are people who laugh at your convictions, mock your prayers, criticize your growth, and become uncomfortable whenever you begin changing for the better. The moment you start healing, they suddenly become irritated. The moment you start praying more, they begin creating more conflict. The moment you start protecting your peace, they accuse you of acting different. Why? Because unhealthy spirits are threatened by transformation. You must understand that darkness does not always appear evil on the surface. Sometimes it appears charming. Sometimes it appears emotional. Sometimes it appears wounded and needy. But behind the behavior is an influence determined to keep you trapped in confusion and emotional bondage. There are family members who only call when they need something. There are friends who secretly celebrate your failures but resent your victories. There are people who feed on drama because chaos gives them control. And the dangerous part is this: if you stay connected too long, their mindset can slowly become your mindset. A destructive spirit loves division. It loves turning people against each other. It whispers suspicion into families. It creates competition between siblings. It creates resentment between friends. It turns small misunderstandings into lifelong bitterness. Some people cannot stand peace because conflict is the environment where they feel powerful. Notice the people who always carry gossip, always bring negativity, always create tension wherever they go. Every room becomes heavy after they enter it. Every conversation becomes toxic after they speak. They constantly criticize others, tear people down, and spread discouragement. The reason is simple: darkness cannot produce light. Another sign is manipulation through fear and guilt. Some people know exactly how to control emotions. They make you feel responsible for their happiness while ignoring your pain. They twist your kindness into weakness. They use anger, silence, or emotional pressure to control your decisions. They want access to your life without accountability for their behavior. They demand loyalty while offering disrespect. And many good-hearted people remain trapped because they confuse love with tolerance. But real love does not destroy your peace. Real love does not constantly humiliate, control, or weaken you. You must stop ignoring spiritual warning signs simply because someone is family. Blood relationship dough. S not automatically mean healthy relationship. There are people connected to you by blood but disconnected from your purpose. And if you are not careful, you will spend years trying to save people who are committed to pulling you down. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is create distance. Sometimes wisdom means limiting access. Even Jesus walked away from toxic crowds. Even He refused to surrender His peace to people determined to misunderstand Him. Be careful around people who hate accountability. When someone never apologizes, never admits wrong, never accepts correction, and always blames others, pride is controlling their heart. Pride opens doors to destruction because it refuses truth. Healthy people can reflect, repent, and grow. But destructive spirits resist correction because they fear exposure. They want to maintain control, even if it means damaging everyone around them. You also need discernment regarding envy. Jealousy is one of the most dangerous hidden forces operating through relationships. Some people clap for you publicly while secretly resenting you privately. They study your life, compare themselves to you, and become uncomfortable when you succeed. Watch how people respond when good things happen for you. Genuine people celebrate your blessings without competition. But envious people minimize your achievements, change the subject, or become distant whenever favor appears on your life. Jealousy can smile while secretly hoping for your downfall. There are also people who constantly tempt you toward compromise. They encourage addictions, dishonesty, immorality, and rebellion against God. They mock discipline and glorify destruction. They pressure you to lower your standards because your obedience convicts their disobedience. Every time you try to improve your life, they try to pull you backward. You cannot soar spiritually while surrounding yourself with people committed to spiritual decay. But hear this carefully. Recognizing darkness in people does not mean hating them. It means using wisdom. You can pray for someone without allowing them control over your life. You can love someone while refusing to participate in their dysfunction. Compassion does not require captivity. Forgiveness does not require unlimited access. Some relationships only survive because you keep sacrificing your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Maintain them. God did not call you to carry every burden, fix every broken person, or tolerate every form of mistreatment. Some battles belong to God, not you. Your responsibility is to guard your heart, protect your peace, and remain spiritually alert. The enemy loves distracted believers, emotionally drained people, and spiritually confused minds. That is why discernment matters. Not paranoia, not hatred. Discernment. Discernment allows you to recognize when someone's presence repeatedly produces darkness instead of light. Discernment helps you notice patterns instead of excuses. Discernment reminds you that repeated disrespect is not accidental. Repeated chaos is not coincidence. Repeated manipulation is not love. Stop ignoring what your spirit has been warning you about for years. There are seasons where God removes certain people because their assignment in your life has expired. Some connections cannot go where God is taking you. If certain people become angry because you establish boundaries, that reaction reveals more than their words ever could. Healthy people respect boundaries. Controlling people resist them. And perhaps the hardest truth of all is this: some people only feel comfortable with a version of you that stayed broken. The moment you become stronger, wiser, disciplined, prayerful, and emotionally healthy, they begin resisting your growth. Why? Because your healing exposes their dysfunction. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your discipline exposes their lack of self-control. Your faith exposes their spiritual emptiness. So stay alert, pray for wisdom. Listen to the quiet warnings inside your spirit. Stop dismissing toxic patterns just because they come wrapped in familiar faces. Not every relationship is meant to continue forever. Some people are lessons, some are tests, some are distractions, and some are reminders that your peace is precious and your soul must be protected at all costs. One of the most important lessons you will ever learn in life is that not every battle comes wearing an obvious face. Some struggles enter quietly through conversations, relationships, and emotional attachments. There are people who look harmless on the outside, yet every time they enter your life, confusion follows them. Every time you spend time around them, your peace disappears, your confidence weakens, and your spirit feels heavy. Many people ignore these signs because they are focused only on appearances, but spiritual influence is often revealed through patterns, not words. You must begin paying attention to what certain relationships produce inside of you. Some people inspire growth, wisdom, discipline, and faith. Others awaken fear, insecurity, anger, jealousy, temptation, and emotional exhaustion. A healthy spirit produces life, but a destructive spirit slowly drains life from everything it touches. That is why discernment is so important. Not everyone who smiles at you is celebrating you. Not everyone who says they love you is protecting your future. Some individuals carry bitterness so deep that it spreads into every relationship around them. There are friends who pretend to support you until you begin succeeding. The moment your life improves, their attitude changes. They become distant, sarcastic, critical, or strangely uncomfortable around your progress. They were comfortable with your struggles because your struggles made them feel secure. But your growth threatens the hidden jealousy living inside them. Envy rarely announces itself openly. It hides behind jokes, passive comments, fake compliments, and silent resentment. A jealous spirit can sit at your table, clap for your achievements publicly, and still secretly hope you fail privately. You also have to recognize people who constantly feed negativity into your mind. Every conversation becomes criticism. Every opportunity becomes a problem. Every dream becomes impossible. They speak fear into your future and discouragement into your purpose. After talking with them, your faith feels weaker. Your motivation disappears. Your hope becomes smaller. Darkness often works through constant negativity because negative words slowly poison the mind. If someone continuously speaks death into your spirit, eventually you may begin believing the lies they repeat. Some people are controlled by manipulation. They know exactly how to use guilt, fear, anger, or emotional pressure to control others. They make you feel responsible for fixing their lives while ignoring the damage they cause to yours. They twist situations to avoid accountability. They become the victim in every story, even when they are clearly wrong. Manipulative people drain emotional energy because they create confusion. One moment they act loving, and the next moment they create chaos. This cycle keeps people emotionally trapped. You cannot ignore repeated patterns and continue calling them accidents. When someone consistently creates division, spreads gossip, lies, stirs conflict, or causes emotional destruction, there is something deeper influencing their behavior. Some individuals are addicted to drama because peace feels unfamiliar to them. Wherever they go, relationships break apart, families divide, friendships collapse, trust disappears, chaos follows them like a shadow. And many people keep tolerating toxic behavior because they are afraid of confrontation or afraid of losing relationships. But protecting your spirit is not cruelty. It is wisdom. There are people who become angry the moment you establish boundaries because boundaries expose unhealthy control. Healthy individuals respect your peace. Toxic individuals resist your peace because your peace limits their influence over you. If someone becomes upset every time you say no, every time you prioritize your mental health, or every time you create distance from dysfunction, pay attention to that reaction carefully. Another dangerous sign is when people constantly tempt you toward compromise. See? They pressure you to abandon your values, lower your standards, ignore your convictions, and participate in destructive behavior. They mock discipline and celebrate recklessness. They encourage addiction, dishonesty, lust, hatred, or rebellion because your obedience makes them uncomfortable. Your light reminds them of their darkness, so they try to pull you down to their level instead of rising higher themselves. There are even family members who speak curses over your future without realizing the power of their words. They tell you that you will never succeed, never change, never overcome, never become better. They constantly remind you of your past mistakes instead of encouraging your future potential. Some people become so familiar with your brokenness that they feel threatened by your healing. They only know how to relate to the wounded version of you. Once you start growing stronger, they begin resisting your transformation because your progress exposes their unwillingness to change. You must stop assuming that every familiar relationship is automatically safe. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from the closest people. That does not mean you hate them. That does not mean you stop praying for them. But it does mean you become spiritually awake. Discernment means recognizing when someone's influence repeatedly pushes you away from peace, wisdom, purpose, and faith. Many people stay trapped in toxic relationships because they confuse love with access. Loving someone does not mean allowing them unlimited control over your emotional and spiritual life. Forgiveness does not mean tolerating repeated destruction. You can care about someone deeply while still recognizing that their presence has become harmful to your growth. Your spirit will often warn you before your mind fully understands what is happening. There are moments when something feels wrong even if you cannot explain it logically. That heaviness, confusion, exhaustion, or inner discomfort may be a warning sign that you are dealing with unhealthy spiritual influence. Too many people ignore those warnings until the damage becomes severe. Be careful around people who constantly drain your energy but never bring peace. Be careful around people who celebrate your weakness but resist your growth. Be careful around people who only contact you when they need something. Be careful around people who create confusion wherever they go. And above all, be careful around people who slowly pull you away from the person God is calling you to become. One of the greatest forms of wisdom you can develop in life is learning how to protect your peace without feeling guilty about it. Many people spend years sacrificing their emotional health, spiritual strength, and mental stability just to keep unhealthy relationships alive. They tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict. They ignore warning signs to avoid loneliness. They allow toxic behavior because they are afraid of disappointing people. But there comes a moment when you must realize that constantly losing yourself to keep others comfortable is not love. It is self-destruction. Peace is not weakness. Peace is protection. Your mind, heart, and spirit are valuable, and not everyone deserves unlimited access to them. Some people only know how to bring chaos into the lives of others. Every conversation becomes stressful. Every interaction leaves emotional exhaustion. Every disagreement turns into manipulation, guilt, or drama. And if you are not careful, you will slowly normalize dysfunction simply because it happens frequently around you. People who become uncomfortable when you begin creating healthy boundaries. The reason is simple. Boundaries remove their ability to control you. Individuals who benefited from your silence will resist your voice. Those who benefited from your lack of limits will become angry when limits are finally established. They may call you selfish, prideful, cold, or distant, simply because you stopped allowing mistreatment. But protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Too many people have been taught that being kind means tolerating everything. But kindness without wisdom becomes dangerous. You cannot keep allowing people to wound your spirit while pretending everything is fine. You cannot continue opening the door to those who repeatedly disrespect your emotions, manipulate your trust, and drain your strength. At some point, wisdom requires action. Love without boundaries becomes emotional captivity. There are relationships where every interaction feels heavy. You constantly feel pressured, criticized, controlled, or emotionally unsafe. You walk carefully around certain people because you know even small conversations can become arguments. You silence your thoughts to avoid conflict. You hide your growth to avoid jealousy. You reduce your light to make insecure people comfortable. That is not peace. That is survival. Real peace does not require pretending. Real peace allows honesty, safety, growth, and emotional rest. Healthy people do not force you to constantly defend yourself. Healthy people do not enjoy your suffering. Healthy people do not manipulate your compassion. They respect your emotions, your time, your values, and your boundaries. One of the hardest lessons many people learn is that not everyone deserves the same level of access to your life. Some individuals can only handle you from a distance, not because you hate them, but because proximity to them repeatedly damages your peace. Distance is sometimes necessary for healing. Separation is sometimes necessary for clarity, and silence is sometimes necessary for survival. You must stop believing that every relationship can be fixed simply because you care enough. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some people are addicted to conflict. Some people refuse accountability because blaming others protects their pride. No matter how much love you offer, you cannot heal. People who are determined to remain destructive. You cannot save someone who enjoys creating pain. There are family members who use emotional pressure to control your decisions. There are friends who guilt you whenever you prioritize your well-being. There are individuals who expect constant access to your energy while giving nothing healthy in return. They drain your spirit, then act offended when you finally become tired. This is why boundaries matter. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. Without them, Unhealthy individuals will continue taking from you until nothing remains. Protecting your peace also means guarding your mind carefully. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves your emotional reaction. Some people project their bitterness onto others because they are unhappy within themselves. Miserable individuals often seek emotional control because it temporarily distracts them from their own emptiness. If you absorb every negative word spoken over your life, your confidence will slowly disappear. You must become selective about what voices you allow near your spirit. Some voices encourage strength. Others feed fear. Some voices inspire faith. Others create confusion. Some voices speak life. Others constantly release discouragement. The people around you influence your mindset more than you realize. If you spend enough time around bitterness, eventually bitterness begins affecting your thinking. If you spend enough time around chaos, chaos begins feeling normal. There are moments when God is trying to lead you into a healthier season, but unhealthy relationships keep pulling you backward. Every step forward is followed by emotional drama, guilt, manipulation, or unnecessary conflict. Some individuals resist your growth because your healing exposes their dysfunction. They were comfortable with the version of you that stayed broken, insecure, and emotionally dependent. But once you start growing stronger, they feel threatened by your transformation. You must stop apologizing for protecting your peace. You do not need permission to step away from constant negativity. You do not need approval to distance yourself from emotional abuse. You do not need to explain every boundary you create. Sometimes the healthiest decision is simply choosing peace over chaos. Peace may require uncomfortable choices. It may require saying no when others expect yes. It may require distancing yourself from familiar people. It may require ending unhealthy conversations, limiting toxic access, or walking away from relationships that continuously damage your spirit. And yes, some people will misunderstand you for it. Some will accuse you for it. Some will criticize you for changing. But protecting your peace is more important than maintaining fake harmony with destructive people. Never feel guilty for choosing environments that help your spirit breathe again. Never feel ashamed for protecting your emotional health. Never apologize for refusing to participate in constant dysfunction. Your peace is valuable because your purpose is valuable. And the enemy often uses confusion, manipulation, and toxic relationships to distract people from becoming who they were created to be. Sometimes wisdom looks like silence. Sometimes wisdom looks like distance. Sometimes wisdom looks like refusing to argue anymore. And sometimes wisdom looks like finally understanding that your peace is too precious to keep placing it in the hands of people who repeatedly destroy it. One of the greatest battles you will ever fight is the battle T. Remain spiritually strong in a world constantly trying to pull you away from your purpose. Every day there are distractions, temptations, negative influences, and toxic relationships working to weaken your faith, cloud your judgment, and drain your spiritual strength. The enemy rarely attacks people who have no purpose. The strongest attacks often come against those carrying potential, calling, and destiny inside of them. That is why protecting your spiritual life is not optional. It is essential. Many people lose themselves gradually, not suddenly. They do not wake up one day completely disconnected from peace, discipline, and faith. Instead, compromise happens little by little. One unhealthy relationship leads to another. One negative influence becomes normal. One bad habit grows stronger. One distraction steals more time. And eventually the person no longer recognizes who they have become. What once convicted them no longer bothers them. What once inspired them no longer moves them. Their spirit becomes weak because they slowly allow darkness to influence their thinking. You must understand that whoever controls your environment often influences your direction. The people, men around you, shape your mindset, your emotions, your habits, and your spiritual condition. If you constantly surround yourself with individuals who encourage negativity, rebellion, gossip, dishonesty, and emotional chaos, eventually those influences begin affecting your own spirit. No one remains untouched by their environment forever. That is why spiritually strong people become careful about who they allow close to them. They understand that every voice should not have access to their mind. Every opinion should not influence their decisions. Every friendship should not shape their future. Some people carry confusion everywhere they go. Others carry peace. Some carry destruction. Others carry wisdom. And if you are not spiritually alert, you may unknowingly connect yourself to influences that slowly pull you away from the person God created you to become. There are people who become uncomfortable whenever you start changing for the better. The moment you become disciplined, they call you extreme. The moment you protect your peace, they call you distant. The moment you begin praying more, focusing more, and growing emotionally stronger, they suddenly accuse you of acting different. Growth always exposes unhealthy relationships. Some people only like the version of you that stayed broken, insecure, and easy to control. Once you start healing, they no longer recognize how to benefit from your weakness. You cannot stay spiritually strong while constantly entertaining influences designed to weaken your spirit. There are friendships that drain your energy every time you speak with them. There are relationships that constantly tempt you toward compromise. There are conversations that fill your mind with fear, lust, bitterness, jealousy, and anger. What you repeatedly consume will eventually shape your thinking. If darkness constantly enters your ears, your spirit will slowly lose clarity. This is why spiritual discipline matters. Prayer matters. Quiet time matters. Protecting your mind matters. Many people only seek God when life falls apart, but spiritual strength is built daily. It is built through consistency, obedience, self-control, and discernment. A strong spirit does not happen accidentally. It develops through intentional choices. There will always be pressure to compromise. People will encourage you to lower your standards so they can feel more comfortable with their own choices. They will mock purity, discipline, integrity, and faith because conviction makes them uncomfortable. Your obedience reminds them of the areas where they refuse to grow. Instead of changing themselves, they try to pressure you into becoming weaker. Never allow people to shame you for protecting your spiritual life. Some individuals laugh at prayer until they face problems they cannot control. Some people ignore wisdom until consequences arrive. Some people celebrate reckless living while privately suffering emotional emptiness. Do not envy people whose lives appear exciting but internally lack peace. A calm spirit is more valuable than temporary approval from broken people. There are seasons where God begins separating you from certain relationships because He knows where those connections will eventually lead you. At first, the separation feels painful because familiar relationships create emotional attachment. But later you realize that distance protected your future. Some people cannot go where God is taking you because their mindset, habits, and spirit would only slow your growth. Spiritually strong people learn how to walk away from environment that continuously weaken them. They stop entertaining conversations that poison their mind. They stop chasing acceptance from unhealthy people. They stop sacrificing their values for temporary relationships. And most importantly, they stop ignoring the warning signs God places inside their spirit. Your spirit often recognizes danger before your emotions accept it. There are relationships where you constantly feel drained, anxious, confused, or emotionally heavy. Deep inside, you know something is wrong, yet you continue tolerating the connection because of guilt, history, or fear of loneliness. But ignoring discernment can become dangerous. Some relationships are assignments against your peace, your focus, and your destiny. You must remain spiritually awake because not every battle is physical. Some battles happen in the mind. Some happen through influence. Some happen through temptation. Some happen through emotional manipulation. The enemy understands that if your spirit becomes weak, your judgment becomes weaker too. A spiritually exhausted person becomes easier to discourage, easier to distract, and easier to control. Never underestimate the power of staying connected to. O truth. The world constantly changes, people constantly change, emotions constantly change, but truth remains steady. When your foundation stays strong, you become harder to shake during difficult seasons. Storms may come, Betrayal may happen, criticism may rise, but a spiritually grounded person does not collapse easily. Do not allow toxic relationships to convince you that protecting your faith is unnecessary. Do not let negative voices silence the calling placed inside you. Do not let manipulation, fear, jealousy, or emotional pressure pull you away from your purpose. You were not created to live trapped in confusion and spiritual weakness. You were created to walk in wisdom, peace, strength, and clarity. And sometimes the strongest decision you can make is choosing distance from anything that consistently pulls you away from God, weakens your spirit, and distracts you from becoming the person you are meant to be. Ladies and gentlemen, life becomes dangerous when we ignore what our spirit has been trying to warn us about for years. Not every battle comes from strangers. And not every harmful influence looks evil on the surface. Sometimes the greatest attacks against your purpose and faith come through familiar voices, unhealthy relationships, and people who slowly drain the strength God placed inside you. That is why discernment is so important. You must learn to recognize what brings light into your life and what continuously produces confusion, fear, manipulation, bitterness, and emotional exhaustion. Do not feel guilty for protecting your peace. Do not apologize for creating boundaries. And do not allow anyone to shame you for choosing spiritual growth over toxic attachment. Some people are assignments to help your destiny, while others are distractions sent to delay it. Wisdom is knowing the difference. You cannot continue walking toward your purpose while holding on to relationships that constantly pull you backward. Eventually, you must choose between keeping everyone comfortable or protecting the calling on your life. There will be moments when distancing yourself from negativity feels painful, especially when it involves people you deeply love. But sometimes separation is not punishment, it is protection. God will never ask you to destroy your spirit just to maintain unhealthy connections. Real love produces peace, honesty, growth, strength. Anything that repeatedly destroys your joy, weakens your faith, and steals your inner peace must be handled with wisdom and spiritual awareness. Stay alert about the voices influencing your mind. Stay careful about the environments shaping your heart. Stay connected to truth, prayer, discipline, and people who genuinely encourage your growth. The enemy works through confusion and distraction, but God works through clarity and peace. And when you begin listening to the quiet warnings inside your spirit, you will stop ignoring red flags, stop tolerating emotional destruction, and stop allowing toxic influences to control your future. Never forget this. Your soul is valuable, your peace is precious, and your destiny is too important to place in the hands of people who continuously lead you away from the person God created you to become. And always remember, the closer you walk with God, the clearer you will see who truly belongs in your life and who is only sent to distract you from your purpose.